The purpose of this recording is to demonstrate how Compellent's Data Instant Replay feature and command utility, called CompCU, can be taken advantage of in an Oracle environment. First, I'll show how to offload an Oracle RMAN backup of a single instance database to a dedicated RMAN server. Then I'll corrupt the original source database and illustrate how the RMAN backup can be used to restore and recover the original source database. Finally, I'll demonstrate how replays can be used to clone the source database. The basic concept shown in this demonstration can be applied to RAC databases or user-managed backups as well. This diagram represents a single instance database existing on database server Camaro. Server Dell RAC is the dedicated RMAN backup server which will be used to offload RMAN backup operations from Camaro. The demonstration will begin with the process of inserting rows into table imp schema test user in the single instance database. While rows are being inserted, the main demonstration script will be started which will place the database in begin backup mode so a consistent image of the database can be taken. The script will then use CompCU to create a replay for each volume residing in the consistency group and take the database out of begin backup mode. The consistency group instructs Storage Center to suspend all I/O on all volumes within the consistency group while the replays are created. Once replays have been created for all the volumes within the consistency group, Storage Center resumes I/O on the volumes. The suspension of the I/O guarantees that the replays will be consistent. After the replays are created, new volumes called view volumes will be created from the metadata recorded in the replays. The view volumes are then mapped to the dedicated Oracle RMAN server and the RMAN backup started. Once the main demonstration script has completed and a query against the RMAN repository is made to verify that the backup was made successfully, the original source database will be corrupted. An RMAN backup restore and recovery operation will follow on the original source database, making it again available for use. From there, I'll clone the target database which was used by the RMAN process. I'll pause the recording momentarily to open a session to Storage Center to show how the consistency group is defined for the single instant production database. So here is our session to Storage Center, which hosts the single instant production database used by this demonstration. The volume that is currently highlighted and ends with the string DORA data is the main database volume for the database. Other volumes containing the database are DORA redo logs and DORA arch logs. A fourth volume, DORA base, is the volume used to contain the Oracle binaries or Oracle home driving the database. The three source database volumes each have a replay associated with them, but as you can see here by the little red box, the replays have been expired and no longer can be used. Now, since we are dealing with an Oracle database and our intention is to make a consistent image of the database through replays, the replays must be part of a consistent replay profile. Let's scroll down to the bottom of the screen to show the replay profile definitions. So we'll go to folder replay profiles and expand it, and then highlight consistent replay profile Camora FS. As you can see with this consistent replay profile, there are three replays within it, and all three replays have expired. The consistency group is made up of three volumes that I highlighted above. Now I'll pause the recording again and open several PuTTY sessions for the demonstration. I've opened 5 PuTTY sessions for the demonstration. The upper left session will be used to corrupt the original source database, perform the RMAN restore and recovery operations, along with some additional maintenance operations. The upper right PuTTY session is used to simulate a real-time application against the database by executing a PL/SQL block of code that inserts records into table imp. The lower left PuTTY session is used to display record counts in table imp at different intervals throughout the demonstration. The lower right session is used to execute the driving script for the demonstration. Finally, the bottom session is used to repurpose the cloned database and perform some additional miscellaneous commands. Now let's start the demonstration by first showing you the mount points of interest on the source and target servers. The source server has several mount points, 3 of which are of real interest: U02 through U04. Those mount points contain the source database. Through the demonstration, we'll take those mount points and migrate them over to the target server, Dell RAC, through the use of replays. If we take a look at the current mount points on Dell RAC, we'll see that mount point U02 through 4 are not present. Let's get ready to execute the demonstration. So I'm going to go over to my third session and perform a record count against the database to show that there are 0 records in table imp. And indeed, there are no records in that table. Now let's get ready to start the real-time application, which is basically going to execute a PL/SQL block to do the insert records. Okay. The script is going to insert 500,000 records into table imp, which resides in schema test user, and there's going to be 0 delay between the inserts. So in other words, I'm going to be pumping as much data as quickly as I can into table imp. I'm going to go back to the third session and get ready to execute the select count star again once the insert script has started. But before I do that, I'm going to jump down to session number 4 and get ready to execute the main demonstration script. Okay, so we should be ready to start the entire process. Let's start out by executing the insert script that will jump down doing the select count star, and then when we get a positive result back on the inserts being performed, we'll start the main driving demonstration script. So we're inserting records, we'll verify it, there are records being added, so we'll start the main demonstration script. We'll come back over to this window here to perform another select count star, but we'll execute that when the replays are cut. And the purpose for doing that is to get an idea of the record count that will be in the clone or target database. So here you can see that we're putting in the database in begin backup mode before the replays are cut. The replays are being cut, so we'll execute our select count star. So the target database should have in the neighborhood of 345,000 records. You can see all 3 replays have been cut. Now we're just gathering information on the SCSI devices and mapping those, presenting those view volumes, which we're creating now, over to Dell RAC. We'll mount them and start up the database, making a backup of it. Once we get a successful backup and that it's cataloged successfully, we'll corrupt the original database and then use that RMAN backup to do the restore and recovery. So here you can see that the view volumes have been successfully mapped to Dell RAC. So let's take a peek at Storage Center to see if those view volumes have actually been created. So I'm going to bring into view here the Storage Center 11 window, and you can see that we're still left on the consistency profile definition, which made those 3 volumes. Let's take a look at the destination folder for those view volumes to see if they exist. Let's refresh the window. And there are my 3 view volumes, which were created from the replays of each of the volumes within my consistency group. So the RMAN backup will be made from the target database that resides on these 3 volumes. Let's take a look at the backup operation and see where we are at. So the database was brought over, we're just starting it up. And while that is going on, okay, so now we're taking a backup. While that backup is being made, let's take a look at the application to see if it finished its inserts, and it has. So let's go over to the 3rd window again and do another select count star to see if all 500,000 records reside in my source database. And they do. So I can tell you that the application had no problems continuing to write to that database as the replays were being made. I'm going to temporarily log out of my session here and get ready for the data corruption that's going to follow very shortly. Let's take a peek at the demonstration script to see where we're at. So the RMAN process is still working, still chugging along, making a backup image of that clone version now that exists over on Dell RAC. And the backup version that we're backing up contains that record count of in the neighborhood of 345,000 records. So the backup finished successfully. Now the remaining step is to catalog in the repository that backup. And this operation is rather quickly, so we should be getting a return back. And it's finished. So now let's move on to the next phase of the demonstration, which would be corrupting the source database. So let's go to our first session here and validate that the RMAN backup was successful. So I'm going to log into my remote database over on Dell RAC, using that as a source for my RMAN backup, and we're going to check the RMAN repository against that database. We'll perform a list backup to check to see what the repository has listed for it. And indeed it does come back with a whole bunch of pieces for that database, so I'm pretty sure that the backup is okay. We'll take a look at the archives that were backed up as part of this process. And our archive logs are present as well. So we'll quit our RMAN session, and now we'll get ready for the corruption. But I don't want to just go out haphazardly blowing away a database file from my source database. I want to specifically blow away the table that hosts the IMP database. So to simplify that task, I'm going to log back into the database and execute a script which will show me the database file that I need to blow away. Grab my script name, So the database file that I want to blow away is the test.ts.dbf file, which contains the imp table. Now the next thing I want to do is create my RMAN stanza for the recovery and restore and recovery procedure. So we'll execute another script, and it generated the necessary RMAN stanza for that restore recovery procedure. So now let's go ahead, corrupt the database, and then go through the restore and recovery procedure. So let's first blow away the file. Let's verify that the database actually is no longer usable. So we'll go back to my third session, log into the test user account. We'll flush our buffer cache to get rid of any residue of table imp. And indeed, the database is no longer usable. So let's execute our recovery procedure. So we'll log back into RMAN. And I will execute my RMAN stanza that I generated up here. If I'm quick enough, I'll be able to see that in that third session the file has already been recreated, and now it's just going through the process of recovering the contents. And we'll see how RMAN is performing that. So it looks like it's already done, so if I go back to my third session, I should see a successful select count star, and indeed I do. I see all 500,000 records. So that concludes the portion of the demonstration on showing how replays can be used to perform Oracle RMAN backups and used then for restore and recovery procedures. Next, I'll go into the part of the demonstration that shows how one could clone that target database. So before we go into the cloning procedure, I'm just going to exit out of this SQL Plus session here. And now I'll go to my fifth window, which is where I'm going to control the cloning operation. I'll log into the Oracle account, set my Oracle environment up correctly for my target database. I'll start SQL Plus. I'll alter the database and take it out of begin backup mode. I'll then open up the database. And now I'll perform a select count star against the underlying imp table. And as you can see, I am in the neighborhood of 345,000 records. Specifically, the target database contains 329,000 records. And the reason for the difference here is that when I executed my select count star here, I didn't execute it at the exact moment that the replays were cut. So that's why there is a little bit of a delta. But the replays do have a consistent point in time of the database when 329,704 records were inserted into the table. So that concludes the demonstration on showing how replays can be used for performing RMAN backups and also for cloning Oracle databases.